Everything was very good. Genesis chapter 1 verse 31 says that God looked at everything that he had made and it was very good. Before the sixth day, God did not say very good, he said good. Why did God say very good on the sixth day? Because Adam was in God's image and had been given God's dominion. No one murmured and no one was hungry. God could say, very good. That was the climax. After God said this, came the seventh day, the day of rest. God rested. God was satisfied. God rested because he was satisfied. This was the last item of the ultimate consummation. God rested and was satisfied. The reason for rest. The reason for God's rest was that his glory was manifested because man had his image and his authority was about to be exercised. Satan, God's enemy, was going to be dealt with by God. As long as man expresses God's image and deals with God's enemy, God can rest. It was not simply that God had finished his work, but in his work was a man who could bear God's image and subdue God's enemy. Based upon these two facts, God rested. The miniature of rest, the rest of creation. The rest of creation was a small rest, a miniature rest. In this rest, man had the image of God and could exercise God's dominion. These two factors caused rest, but only rest on a small, very small scale. The types of rest. Whatever is mentioned in Genesis 1 and 2 is a seed. We have seen in previous messages that light, image, and dominion are all seeds. Rest also is a seed, needing the whole Bible to grow and develop. The seed of rest is sown in Genesis, and the harvest of this seed is in Revelation. In Revelation, we have the consummation of rest. The Bible has some types of rest. The Sabbath of the Old Testament is a type of rest. Man was a testimony and expression of God. Man also was subject to God's authority. God's authority was exercised over the people who kept the Sabbath. Thus, it was a type of rest. The Lord's Day of the New Testament is also a type of rest. The Lord's Day is a type of the coming rest. The church with the saints releases the Lord's life, expressing God Himself. This is the rest we have today. As long as God can be expressed, there is rest. The church with the saints exercises the Lord's authority to deal with his enemy. If we release the Lord's life and exercise His authority, we have rest even now. On the contrary, if we argue and fight, we will have no rest because we are not releasing the life of the Lord. If we fail to exercise authority over the enemy, there will be no rest. The foretaste of rest. The rest we experience now is a foretaste of rest because the full rest has not come. With the saints, the life of God flows and God Himself is manifested. As long as the life of God is flowing and God Himself is manifested, that is rest. This is a foretaste of the coming rest. You may experience this rest even when you are on your job, when you allow the life of God to flow and you let God be expressed. You have the sense of rest. If, however, you are cut off from the flow of God's life, immediately you will be upset within. You have no rest. The more you argue with your wife, the more you will have stomach trouble. You may even develop an ulcer, indicating that there is no life and no rest. On the contrary, if you release the Lord's life, whenever your wife troubles you, you will have a foretaste of rest.